Yeah. Pro Fan Sports Podcast. Let's get it. Pro Fan. Tune into the program. Every single week, get the dope, fam. Sean on the mic, very flat too. Keep you updated, that's what we do. Pro Fan. Tune into the program. Pro Fan. Tune into the program. Pro Fan. Tune into the program. Every single week, get the dope, fam.
Yo, what to do, everybody? It's your boy, John Altidor with Pro Fan Sports Podcast. Back at you with another one. My boy is Vlad. Barry couldn't be here tonight again. Barry will miss you. But today we got Brandon Scoop B. Robinson, NBA insider at Bally Sports. You know, he does the sports betting stuff at Bovada. You know, he's an expert at that. So, Brandon, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, fellas.
Yes, sir. How's everything going? How's your schedule looking right now?
So far, so good, man. Just enjoying some downtime with the off season, but you know, there's really not an off season.
Not in the NBA, there ain't.
No.
Yeah. I was on your Twitter a little bit ago, just looking at what's going on. You were talking about, Kevin Durant, KD, and Kyrie Irving, and what's going on with them. You know, they kind of got the NBA upside down right now. You know, tons of teams trying to get them in-house, and it looks like, you know, the Nets asking price is a little bit pricier, you know, than other teams want to deal with right now. What are you hearing about that? And do you think it's fair?
I think that it's a situation where teams are offering picks. Some teams are not offering picks, but you think about the picks portion of it. If the Nets are being offered picks, you're basically betting on an 18-year-old or an 8th grader because those picks are 28, 29, maybe 27. And you look at the situation with Kevin Durant in his 30s, the Nets want something of equal value. So you look at the Pelicans, for example, they want Brandon Ingram, Larry Nance Jr., as well as some of those 6 first-round picks that the Pelicans have, you know, from those trades that they made with the Lakers and what they made with the Bucks. And then you look at the Suns, same thing. You know, you look at the Miami Heat, who I think, or rather I know that, you know, they have interest in Kevin Durant, but I have interest in dating Rihanna. That doesn't mean I'm going to go out on a date with her. You look at, there's just a lot of teams. You look at on the Lakers side with Kyrie. They're not going to just take an offer for Russell Westbrook. They want Anthony Davis, and Lakers aren't trying to give up Anthony Davis. They're trying to prepare for life after LeBron, whenever that happens. So, the one thing that the Lakers, I'm sure, were banking on is if the Nets were to bite on the whole notion of Kyrie Irving coming is preparing for life after LeBron. You can still have Kyrie and Anthony Davis together for life after that. But, you know, it's just not in the cards so far. And so you go through a list of teams that either have interest, that have the assets, but then they're lowballing. So, you know, that's kind of where we are. I spoke to someone yesterday who said, you know, KD, Kyrie are on lock right now, and they're not just giving them up for nothing.
Yeah.
And really, the Nets don't have to.
Yeah. Have you heard anything about the Celtics being linked to KD?
No, but I know that it is a Celtics fan's dream, I'm sure. But I don't think that Jaylen Brown being shipped for KD gets it done. Mm-hmm. Specifically because you just updated your roster, one, by adding Danilo Gallinari, who I think, you know, from a shooting perspective works wonders. And I think had you had him in the finals this past season, would have helped when they kind of went into somewhat of a scoring drought at times against the Warriors. And then, you know, adding Malcolm Brogdon to the pot. You need a secondary playmaker because at times I think Marcus Smart is better utilized as a primary defender, and as a you can shift him over to the 2, and you really have Malcolm Brogdon, who was 6'7", 6'8", that can kind of see above the opposing defender, you know, at that height as a playmaker, as a lead guard or a small forward or point forward, if you will. So, you know, schematically, I understand, you know, what Boston did this offseason, and I don't really necessarily think they should mess with that chemistry.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, KD, all-world basketball player, but he's 34, Do you think what the Nets are I guess that's what I'm asking. Do you think what the Nets are asking is like a fair price for him? Because I'm of the mind that, I'm not going to trade, somebody like Jaylen Brown and, Smart and another player and then add picks to that.
No, you mess up the chemistry. That's an answer to your question about Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart. I mean, we're talking about Marcus Smart that was just named, Defensive Player of the Year, and really is the defensive anchor on that team, alongside Robert Williams III, who, I really think an offseason of rest will do him some good. And you just looking at Ime Udoka and looking at what the front office did in Boston and kind of getting a glimpse of it, being in Boston and being back and forth between Boston and San Francisco for the finals. I see the culture that Boston's building. It just doesn't make sense from a basketball perspective to move those guys. Specifically to your question about moving Kevin Durant, yeah, he's 34, but Kevin Durant, in my opinion, is a top 3 basketball player in the NBA. And so for Brooklyn to ask for a lot, you don't become a good all-world team by settling. So I think you should ask. If you feel that you should be getting more for that product. And I think that oftentimes in the media, when people debate who's better or who's this or who's that, sometimes you have to look at what someone means to a team more than just their star status. And so when I look at the Nets, I think one thing that I think Steve Nash is trying to institute, which is why I think there's such kickback, is some sort of system. Kyrie and Kevin Durant are artists. They're solo acts, and one of and it showed in the playoffs where, you have 2 star guys and a good supporting cast, but it was lacking a playmaker alongside Kyrie, and he was dependent on to be that primary ball handler. Where I think he had some help playing along James Harden, and Ben Simmons was out, so you lack the primary ball handler or a guy that can facilitate and play defense in Ben Simmons because he was out. But I also think I just think that the Nets really should kind of run it back, or at least get that finished experiment going. Not only at the trade deadline that you bring in Ben Simmons, you brought in Seth Curry. You've had Joe Harris, who was out most of, if not all of the season. And you combine that with a Cam Thomas who's been playing decently in summer league, and also you brought in you re-signed Kessler Edwards, but you also have, I think, Nicholas Claxton, who at times in the playoffs against Boston, he had a level of chemistry off the screen and roll with Kyrie that's very supremely underrated. And I think that Kevin Durant is an all-world type player. You build around stars. You don't trade stars. Michael Jordan was a star on the Chicago Bulls, and they brought in help. So I'm not comparing Kevin Durant to Michael, but I do think that you owe it to them as players to get them the help they need, but also you owe it to the organization, both from the front office, coaching, and player perspective, to get it right.
Yeah. I agree with a lot of those points, man. I think whatever happens with them, big time news, obviously. And I'm not sure if KD is going to get moved, based on everything that they want. Another player that's being talked about a little bit right now, a team that made a huge trade, Utah Jazz. They moved Rudy Gobert for a bunch of picks, and a couple players. And now I saw reports about Danny Ainge. I think it said that he doesn't think Donovan Mitchell is a franchise cornerstone or something like that. Well, what are your thoughts around that?
I didn't see the quote, so I won't speak on what I didn't see or hear. But I do think that I know that Donovan Mitchell. I spoke to someone yesterday, actually, it being from Elmsford, New York, Westchester County by way of Connecticut. Growing up watching the Mets and his dad working in the front office for the New York Mets. A coming home is something that he's talked about amongst his core group of peers. But Utah's not going to just give him up. And so I know that Utah and the Nets did have a level of gauged interest in discussing some things a couple of weeks ago. Nothing substantial, just kind of exploratory talks. But the Knicks, to me, would make a lot of sense. But you got to ask this question. You know, you're able, if you're in the Knicks and you're trying to get Donovan Mitchell, do you give up a young core of Emmanuel Quigley as well as Obi Toppin or Julius Randle? Do you give up R.J. Barrett? Because if I'm the Utah Jazz, I'm trying to get the most. And knowing the type of person that Danny Ainge is as a front office executive, Danny Ainge definitely fleeced the Brooklyn Nets some years ago when Billy King was in a front office role. Not only did he trade Kevin Garnett, Jason Terry, and Paul Pierce to the Brooklyn Nets, but they also got a ton of draft picks, as you know, from the Brooklyn Nets, which turned into, in 2016, Jaylen Brown, as well as Jason Tatum later on as well. So, Danny Ainge is a shrewd businessman as it relates to getting the most. And I think that, you know, you look at Leon Rose with the Knicks and you look at Sean Marks with the Nets. If those two New York teams are interested, they're going to have to really get in their think tank and really figure this thing out collectively as an organization.
Absolutely, man. And just bringing it back to, you know, the hometown, Boston here, you know, you talked about we got Danilo Gallinari in a trade, you know, a good shooter. And, you know, we also got Malcolm Brogdon, you know, a lot of people around the league are saying it's probably one of the best moves in the offseason so far. With those moves that Boston made, where do you see Boston, you know, position in the East right now?
Well, you know, Boston was a surprise to me that they ended up getting Malcolm Brogdon because from all indicators, the Washington Wizards and the Pacers were having conversation. Brogdon's former team, the Pacers, and from my understanding, there was talk of Brogdon going to Washington and the 10th pick being swapped somewhere, and that didn't happen. And he kind of acknowledged it at his presser. That his agent had indicated that was the case. And then, you know, he superfluously ended up going to the Boston Celtics. And as a result, they added opulence and girth within their roster by, as I mentioned previously, getting a playmaker, a facilitator. And then you look at Danilo Gallinari. I mean, I'll tell you that, you know, there were, going back to last season, talks of the Minnesota Timberwolves being a team of interest in Gallinari. And, you know, he gives you premium shooting. I know that, you know, his prior tenure in other organizations, that's something that's valued, a playmaker, but more of a scorer. A guy that can hit the deep ball, and I think his veteran leadership will be laminated amongst Ime Udoka's system. I think he's a guy that will produce and counter, you know, the Warriors of the world shooting wise come finals time. I think it's his coming of age at this point. Having played for teams like the Hawks, the Thunder, the Knicks, the Clippers, and other places, but you know, I really do think. Boston has a solid situation, and I like it.
What do you think? What do you think of Brad Stevens in general as a general manager? I mean, he's pretty young in that role, and some of the moves he's made has made the Boston Celtics better as a team and brought them to the finals, trading bad contracts, getting Al Horford, getting those guys in the offseason. What do you think of him as a general manager and the job he's done in a short period of time?
He has a poker face. You know, I'll tell you, he doesn't answer his phone much when it comes to things. And, you know, he and I jokingly talked about it during the finals. I said, you know, you don't answer your phone. He goes, I know. He's busy working, and he's, you know, in a situation where he inherited a good situation with the Celtics after Danny Ainge left. And did a good job in hiring Udoka. I've really gotten to know got to know Udoka during the finals and just learned the flow of that locker room, even going back to their choice in music. He's a huge Jay-Z fan. And I walked into his car and I asked him, what's your favorite Jay-Z album? He said, Reasonable Doubt. He said, you go to The Evils, you talk about Can't Knock the Hustle, Dead Presidents, all that stuff. It's cool to have someone that, embraces his generation. He likes the Wu-Tang Clan as well, but also the generation after. So you gotta appreciate the Young Thug. You gotta appreciate Future, and some of those other guys. And Robert Williams III, shared with me during the finals that his level of just being real with teammates. Like he told me, or real with players. Like he told me at one point, Udoka told the guys in the locker room, yo, you MFers, what's going on here? I'm tired of talking to the trainer. Y'all all right? What's going on? And that level of directness you find with players, coaches, like with Jason Kidd, Ty Lue, and some of those other guys. So, Udoka having a wealth of experience playing in San Antonio under Greg Popovich, and, being a lead assistant with the 76ers with Ben Simmons and Jimmy Butler, and then doing 1 year in Brooklyn with Kyrie and James Harden, and then finding his role last year being hired by the Celtics. I think he's in a great situation in Boston, and, you credit Brad Stevens for aligning those worlds. So, yeah, credit to Stevens, credit to Udoka. And Udoka has the flyest chick in the game, and Nia Long. I've had a crush on her since Fresh Prince, so respect.
That's great insight. That's insight that I never knew about and that you don't usually hear about. And thanks for sharing that. What makes him? And you mentioned he's a player coach. He's played the game, and those guys respect him, and he has that direct connection. What makes him a good coach so far? I mean, he's only been coaching. He's only been a head coach for a year. What do you think was able to get him to push those guys?
Experience. You play alongside Tim Duncan. You play, and if I'm not mistaken, he was in Portland too, playing with the Rasheed Wallaces of the world. I spoke to a member of that Blazers team that they called the Jail Blazers, because you had a bunch of guys. And we were joking, can you imagine what social media would have been like if they had social media when that Blazers team was on? The amount of just extracurricular activity, I'll say, that took place then. And, I'll say Mary Jane being frowned upon more back then than it is now. Just that whole culture was very different. But I'll say specifically the Udoka, you just play around a lot of personalities. You learn from the greats. He's a disciple of Greg Popovich in San Antonio. He played with Duncan. If I'm not mistaken, he was teammates with David Robinson, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker. I've just named all-world type players. Yeah. Rasheed Wallace, and then being in Brooklyn with two top 75 players in Kevin Durant and James Harden. I think experience is the best teacher. And I think it's like riding a bike. You training wheels, and your mom guides you with the bike, and then slowly or surely, but sure, you know what I'm saying. Surely, you find out how to you just establish your own style, and here you are. You're the head coach of the Boston Celtics. I think he's in a good position. So I think I answered your question.
No, you did, and I guess one follow-up question I had is, so you don't think this is a fluke? You don't think it was, first coach luck or anything like that? You think Udoka is the real deal?
It's the offseason. I haven't seen finalized rosters in the East, and everybody's 0-0 for next season. But I think what made Boston special to me was the ability to kind of tune out the noise and go from a team that wasn't expected to go to the playoffs that made it to the finals. Like, everybody was jacking the Nets and the Sixers in the Eastern Conference. Everybody was looking at the Bucks. Like, I think that the Celtics aren't a secret anymore. But that doesn't mean. But the thing is, they're not a secret. But they added weapons to their repertoire. So I I still think that, as constructed now, you look at the Nets, we'll see what happens there. You look at the Sixers defensively got better by adding P.J. Tucker on their team. James Harden took less money. You got the usual suspects with Joel Embiid and others. You look at Milwaukee, they'll be healthy. You look at Chicago. I think Andre Drummond is a better fit in Chicago with an already potent roster. If you have a healthy Lonzo Ball and Zach LaVine signed that extension, and then you got DeMar DeRozan. So I think the Eastern Conference is competitive. I think that Miami, like you got to tip your hat off to them too. I think it's an 82-game season, and I'll lean on what Al Horford said to me last month. I asked him if there was a point in which they clicked, and he said it was a game against the 76ers. And I think it was in February, he said, February or March, and it really started to click. I think a lot of teams got comfortable after like the All-Star break, and Boston began to rise. And you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think that's why Boston made it to the way they did. But again, they're not a secret anymore.
No, you're right. Thank you. Thank you you gave a lot of insight, and I appreciate it.
Of course, brother.
Absolutely, man. Brandon, we had you for a little bit of time. Again, thank you for, taking the time to come on Pro Fan Sports and blessing us with your NBA knowledge, man. So we really appreciate you. So until next time, man.
Hey, thank you, gentlemen, for the opportunity to be myself.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Talk to y'all soon.
All right. Talk to you later.
Later.
There you have it, man. That was
what?
Brandon.
You mean you don't just be bumping Jay-Z?
Yo, I mean, I can see it though.
I can see it as well.
I could see it just the way. Like, remember in the finals, it was the game where Udoka sat the starters at 11-minute mark of the freaking
the second game.
You know what I'm saying? And he was looking at the ref, and he got that tech on purpose. Remember, he said, "Yeah, I did that on purpose."
Yeah.
Like if you were reading his lips, he was calling the refs the B word. You know what I mean?
Was he really? No way.
Yo, if you go back and look at it, he's like, he's mouthing like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to say that, so YouTube don't shadow ban our video or whatever, but he literally said that. You could read his lips, clearly read his lips, and he pulled the mask down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Udoka, you know what I mean? Like, Udoka's real, man. So he's definitely, we haven't had a coach like him, I don't think. From what I've been seeing, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's way more realer than a lot of the coaches I've seen. I think, Doc Rivers was a great coach here, and he had the clout to go against a lot of things that were happening in the NBA. But I think Udoka, he's just like Scoop was saying, player coach. He's played with Hall of Famers, and he just doesn't really give a shit about what's going on. He's gonna speak his mind, and I think that's the best thing for this team. And
I think also it's the right coach at the right time.
Yeah, right coach, right time, and I think he fits our kind of players. It's like a lot of people were they were nervous about him, calling guys out in the media.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't think we ever said anything about that on this podcast because I feel like, man, we
talked about it. We talked about the players getting a coach that's not only been in the NBA but a black coach that they can relate to and stuff like that. And we talked about that. So
what I'm saying is I don't think we talked about it was like a bad thing that
No, we didn't. Yeah. So to us, it was like, we'll see how it goes because we talked about the team needing sometimes a little boost or a little push or something. So, yeah.
Yeah, man, and it's exactly what they got. And, I can see him being here for a long time, man. And I actually agree. I don't think it was a fluke. I think those guys took a while to adjust to his style and what he wanted to do. And, once Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown started passing the damn ball, like Marcus Smart was asking, things started changing. And I think those guys learned a lot this year alone.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, this is how you're supposed to do it. It's like Yeah, it's what everybody's been looking for the whole time, and
Well, hopefully they can improve on that too, because I still think there was room for improvement and all that stuff.
yeah, I mean they made a huge stride this year for sure, but I still think there's a ways to go. And
Yeah.
the thing is, they're really good already, and I'm like, these guys could be scary good, man, if they make the right adjustments. So you see Jaylen Brown working with T Mac, you know, Jason Tatum. I saw his trainer talking about he's working on finishing, and
Mm.
some of the moves
He
like
needs to work on finishing.
yeah, that makes a lot of
And
sense.
I hope Jaylen Brown is working on dribbling.
Yo, he needs to hang out with Peyton Pritchard. I don't know, cause have you seen Peyton Pritchard's videos?
I haven't seen them, but I don't even need to see them. Graham Pritchard
Oh,
is a way better dribbler.
yeah, this dude, like, he would dribble until his fingers bled. You know what I mean? Like, that's
Yeah.
like his famous story. So, I think everybody's thinking the same thing. But Boston fans, we're kind of irrational sometimes, and I see a lot of the irrational stuff going on, man. But you know, hey, I think the team's better positioned for the next season coming up, and you know, summer league's going on right now. I think we lost the first game, but it's summer league. People are gonna overreact and stuff like that. I don't even want to talk about it, but can't wait to see what's going on in training camp and see how this thing comes together. So, if you're still watching this video, make sure you're liking and subscribing to the channel. Make sure you press the like button. Make sure you share this video. Send it to people so that the YouTube algorithm can pick up these videos and push them out there. We greatly appreciate that. Make sure you're following us on social media. We're at ProFanSports on everything except for Instagram, and that's at ProFans_sports. We're on there every day, posting up content. You want to keep up with what's going on in all the leagues, that's where you do it. So until next video, man, Barry, we'll holla at you, man. Until next time.
So